was 4 years old when the Ambrosio family moved in next door, and at that age, I didn't yet know that some houses don't just shelter people, they preserve nightmares. There was the mother, Valentina Ambrosio, tall, slender, golden-haired, always smiling in a way that felt practiced, like a mask she had perfected over centuries rather than years. There was her husband, Paul, broad-shouldered and silent, a man who followed his wife like a shadow that didn't belong to him anymore. Their son, Billy, was sickly and pale, prone to coughing fits and whispering things that no child should know. But it was their daughter, Rhea, that caught my attention and never truly let me go. Rhea was fragile in a way that made adults speak softly around her, even quieter than her brother, always tucked away with a book pressed against her chest like armor. She vanished into corners, behind curtains, under trees, wherever shadows could hide her from eyes that lingered too long. She looked like her mother, golden hair and pale skin, but her left eye held something unnatural, a single metallic gold spot beneath the pupil, like a drop of molten sunlight trapped in ice. I didn't understand then why that tiny flaw unsettled me so deeply. I only knew that I found her impossible to forget. They moved away before I turned 5, and for years afterward I convinced myself that they had simply faded into the blur of early childhood memories, filed away with imaginary friends and half-forgotten dreams. But nightmares, I learned, don't fade, they wait. 5 years later, just as my parents were preparing to move away themselves, the Ambrosios returned. The same house, the same driveway, the same car, and the same faces. Rhea stepped out first, still 8 years old. Billy followed, still 5. They hadn't changed at all. Not a freckle more, not a strand of hair longer. And I had grown taller than them, older than them. I stood there staring, my mind refusing to understand what my eyes were calmly confirming. Then Valentina emerged from the driver's seat, radiant and flawless as she had been years before. Not a single line etched into her skin, not a hint of gray in her hair. When she saw me watching from behind the fence, her smile died instantly. Her face twisted into something raw and venomous, a look so filled with hatred that I ducked out of sight as if struck. In that moment, without any rational explanation, I knew with terrifying certainty that if she could reach me, she would kill me. Later that day, I saw Rhea standing alone in the driveway, her eyes wide and shimmering with something I had never seen in them before, hope. Then Valentina stormed outside, seized Rhea by the arm, and dragged her into the house. A moment later, the scream echoed through the walls, not the kind of scream born of fear, but of pain. That sound followed me into my dreams for years. I didn't tell my parents. Fear closed my mouth tighter than any threat ever could. I watched the house instead, waiting for chances, for cracks in the perfect illusion Valentina tried to maintain. One afternoon, when Valentina took Paul and Billy away, I crept around the side of the house. Rhea was waiting at the back door. Her pupils were so dilated they swallowed the blue of her eyes. Her hands trembled violently. Sweat soaked her brow. She was drugged, though I wouldn't realize it until much later. As she let me in, she collapsed, scraping her knee against the floor. Blood streaked her skin. And then, before my eyes, the wound sealed itself shut in seconds. Bare skin, no scar. She covered my mouth and pulled out a notepad. The house is bugged. She's listening. Then she wrote, "Easier to show you." She led me to a stack of old photo albums, heavy with dust and age. Inside them were images that shattered every assumption I had about reality. Valentina stood in photographs from the 1800s, then the 1900s, then the 1930s. Always the same, always untouched by time. In early pictures, she wore dark robes embroidered with symbols that made my eyes ache to look at too long. She never aged. Rhea was born in 1937, Billy in 1940, and yet there she stood beside me now, 8 years old, exhausted and trapped. The albums showed a family that tried to live normally. Holidays, beaches, birthday cakes, but the smiles faded. Rhea grew older in the photos, then disappeared, replaced by torn images, rage-scrawled captions, and finally a sequence that made my blood freeze. A grown Rhea, confident and radiant, then a photo taken seconds later, Ria reduced back into a child, drowning inside her own clothes, mouth stretched open in a silent scream. "This family will not be broken," Valentina had written beneath it. The nursery revealed what the albums couldn't: chains on the beds, handcuffs, plastic sheets, syringes, and hanging from the ceiling, a mobile, not stars, not animals, fingers. Ria raised her bandaged hand and wrote, "Fingers take longer to grow back." That night, I broke into the house for her. I stole pages from Valentina's grimoire. I crept through the corridors like prey in a predator's den, every shadow breathing, every creak whispering my name. And when I left, I saw Paul standing in the kitchen, gripping a cattle prod like a man prepared to hunt his own children. Days later, the house was empty. Years passed. Life returned to something resembling normal, until Ria came back. This time, she was the mother. 12 children, all different, all terrified, all devoted, and the eldest looked exactly like Billy. She confessed everything without shame. She spoke of power, of control, of love twisted into worship, of turning people into children not to protect them, but to own them. In her nursery, a new mobile hung from the ceiling, eyeballs, still wet, still watching, and 2 days later, when I cut my arm and watched it heal instantly, I knew the truth. She had made me immortal, whether as a gift or as a future addition to her family. And that is why I'm leaving, because some debts are not meant to be repaid, and some monsters are born, not from darkness, but from love that was broken beyond repair.